On our latest trip to the United States, I got a chance to sit down with an amazing rabbi, Rabbi Judah Mischel. He's the executive director of Camp HASC, which is really for people that have disabilities and challenges, and it's a beautiful camp with a lot of what we call chesed, a lot of kindness. And here is my interview with him, which is not just about Camp HASC, but about the state of affairs of the Jewish people right now, the relationship between the diaspora and Israel, and the strength that we need right now to fight the war. Here is my talk with Rabbi Judah Mischel. Rabbi Judah Mischel is the executive director here at Camp HASC, an author, and also a renowned, an author and a renowned Torah educator as well. Rabbi Judah, I know you like to not mince words, so I'm going to start with a question, a little preamble. I believe that there are two modalities in the Jewish people of how we serve God. There are times in Jewish history where we're in the exile. I call that Mishkan Judaism. And that means that wherever you are, you rove around. It might be in Yemen, and it might be in Paris, and it might be in New York, it might be in Addis Ababa, wherever it is, and you make your shul, you have your rav, you have your mikvah, and that's where Hashem is found. The Shekhinah is there with you. I call that Mishkan Judaism, Mishkan periods. And then there's a period in time where Hashem says, no, I'm flipping the switch, and there's Mikdash Judaism. We all face to Yerushalayim. We always face towards Yerushalayim, but now really there's an ingathering of the exiles, the building of Yerushalayim, and hopefully the construction of the Beit HaMikdash. So there's Mikdash Judaism. But then there are periods in time where there's an in-between. For example, when the Jewish people came to the land of Israel, after the Egyptian exile, there was a period where there was a Mishkan, and it was roving around, but it was in the land of Israel. Maybe we're living in such a time right now where we're on the way home, but not totally home. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts about where are we at really in time? That's a big question. Where are we in time in terms of the Jewish story? Are we on the way to Mikdash? Are we still in Mishkan? Right now, as we're recording this, we're in America. This camp just built recently a new facility. We'll talk about that. But that means that there's still an element that we're here in America. We're still in Mishkan. So that's my question to you. Where are we in time? Mishkan or Mikdash, or in between?
It's a question that I think about and grapple with personally and professionally all the time. I live in Eretz Israel. I live between Tzora and Eshtaol now for more than 20 years. We're very fortunate to have made that choice and made that move. And a lot of my time and focus and energy and resources are spent in the United States, professionally, working with Camp HASC, with friends and family, and with constituents and students and chevra, a community who we're very connected to, who are living in the United States in Chutz La'aretz. So I feel this tension and kind of walk this very fine line all the time. The answer is, I'm not sure. I really don't know. We're almost like in this this state of in-betweenness of like it feels really close to the great day, to the great day when the whole world will turn to a state of Shabbos, so to speak. And it's like those last moments before Shabbos where it's, it might be dressed for Shabbos, but you could still be performing, all the malachot. You could still be doing work. Maybe like the house smells like chicken soup and the food is cooked, but none of the kids have taken a bath yet, where it kind of feels like a lot of things are happening at once. It's almost like when you're getting ready for that redemptive experience of sitting at the Pesach Seder, to come out of Egypt at the Passover Seder, and you're cleaning the house, and like part of the house is clean, part of the house is not, so like you're eating, like your kitchen might be kosher for Pesach, but the dining room isn't yet, or the dining room is, and the kitchen's not yet, and there's very much this tension of in between, but I think that the main question is like where we're heading, not necessarily where we are. We believe in the coming of Mashiach every day. We wake up in the morning optimistic and hopeful and faithful that this is now that something's changing, that something's happening, and something is happening, something is changing. More people are talking about moving. More people are talking about buying land. More people are talking about buying apartments. People are talking about their futures. Their staff members all summer are talking about going to the new Yeshiva University program in Israel, and maybe staying an extra year and doing Shirut Lumi, national service. I don't know where we are exactly, but I think we're closer than we've ever been. Like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, we're in the last generation of exile, the first generation of redemption. We're somewhere between the Mishkan and the Mikdash.
Maybe we're in the end of the middle, and the end of the beginning.
Yeah, it's hard. How do we know? We don't really know. But what's clear is that at least in our lifetime, there's never been more of a sense of a groundswell of movement that's directing people toward realizing that all of this is just not. This is not the answer. This is not a long-term sustainable place. No matter how much we build and how much we invest into the infrastructure of Chutz La'aretz, I don't think that there's anyone who's honest, and anybody who's really reading the room of Jewish history and paying attention, or anyone with any type of historical consciousness or any type of God awareness who's really thinking about a big picture, who thinks that this is where it's going to end, and this is like a sustainable plan. There's definitely a groundswell, and there's definitely a feeling that we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, so the Jewish world has problems. It has problems, and Israel has got problems. And you bump into people, and they say to you, only Mashiach is going to solve these problems. And I have been finding myself to be somewhat allergic, to the point where people say that, and I want to be kind to them. My wife, who's always teaching me to be a little bit kinder, she says to me, you have to, that's part of our core Jewish beliefs. You have to say the line, the party, the right thing. You're a card-carrying member of Orthodox Judaism. You're a Torah-believing Jew. You have to say, I believe in Mashiach. But I find myself oftentimes to be allergic to this phraseology because I find that there's an element in the Jewish world that people want to throw off responsibility. And instead of saying, well, we got to take care of this, we got to fix this, this is serious. We got jihadists in our land, we got this kind of corruption and these kind of problems, we got to take the bull by the horns. Instead they say, no, this Mashiach dude, he's gonna fix everything. It's a type of panacea.
It's a misunderstanding of what Mashiach is. Mashiach is not some fix-it pill. Mashiach is a process. Redemption is a process. It unfolds in stages. It unfolds within a political reality, within economic trends, within cultural trends, within social trends. Progress. I mean, some are progressive, somehow became a bad word in certain communities in our community. Progress in terms of the refinement of the soul and the clarification of values. What we are and what we stand for, what we're willing to die for and what we demand that we live for. All those things that are happening right now is Mashiach Tzeit, is an expression in an unfolding of the Messianic process. It's happening. So to think that one day someone's going to drop down from heaven, the temple's going to drop down, there is an opinion that's going to kind of land and happen, and that there's going to be this wings of eagles. That wings of eagles narrative and the ingathering from the four corners of the earth is happening. It's been happening, and maybe it's speeding up. But we want to, like you said, I think the main word is achrayut, is responsibility, taking agency. We like to kind of hope and think that somebody else will do it for us and God will fix it. There's actually a very beautiful Gemara that kind of describes all the different things that are going to take place in the Messianic era, and kind of describes a lot of the challenges that are going to happen and the difficult, the painful parts, even the shameful parts of what's going to unfold in what's called Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs, the difficult, the suffering of the Messianic era. And a lot of people point to those and say, hey, look what's going on. For example, there'll be just an awakening of chutzpah, and the generation will rebel against its elders, and kipnei hador, kipnei hakelev, and things will become so expensive that it'll almost make it impossible to sustain the inflation. And there'll be all these wars and all these challenges, which is, one by one, we're kind of living through. And in the end, there's almost like this silver lining in the Gemara that says, and in the end, Reish Lakish says, Ein lanu al mi l'hishayin. In the end, there's no one for us to depend on, rak al Avinu shebashamayim. With all these challenges and all of the corruption and difficulty and rebellion and all the suffering, the silver lining is that we have God to depend on, and we'll kind of be forced into that corner and have to depend on the Ribono Shel Olam. But saying the name of Itzel of Petterberger, one of the great scholars of the last 200 years, that that's actually the worst of all the punishments. That when the Jewish nation will be, so to speak, forced into a corner and not be able to have any type of like self-expression or self-reliance or arevut or sense of community and responsibility and people relying on one another, when we've kind of given up agency and responsibility, and we say, "Oh, God will provide, God will take care of us, God will fight our wars, God will avenge our degradation, God will bring back our captives, God will bring us all to Eretz Israel on wings of eagles, and God will build the mikdash, and God will take care of it." That itself is the greatest punishment, because that is the ultimate expression of exile, of saying, it's not on me, it's on the Ribono Shel Olam, on the Master of the world. The Master of the world is waiting for us to, like you said, not just take the bull by the horns, but like pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps and take responsibility, declare agency, sovereignty, so to speak, atzma'ut, which, which is what we celebrate on the 5th of Iyar, but we haven't yet really achieved as a state, as a nation, real independence. It begins with us, so to speak, taking responsibility for ourselves. Like, we're kind of all looking for that magic pill for us to lose the weight and make the money and be happy and figure out our shalom bayit and let our kids be successful and
know all the shas.
Wake up in the morning and become a Talmid Chacham, and the shortcut to all these things. It doesn't go like that. They're not sustainable. It's not real. It's not homegrown. It's not mechubar. It's not connected. It's not organic. And ultimately, Mashiach is a process which reveals within us not just the desire, but the ability, or not just the ability, but the desire to do it with our own hands, to build it. To build ourselves, to build our people, to build a community, to build our land, ultimately to build the mikdash. Depending on God is wonderful. And that's part of it, but God is depending on us to be his partners to build it here in this world.
Okay, so I want to talk about a pet peeve that I have, an issue that this is a big topic in my life.
We know each other more than 30 years.
It's a lot.
This is a pet peeve.
Well, this is a big one, and it happens to be about tourism. So when you invited me to come out here to HASC, my wife mentioned to me somehow through conversation that she always wanted to go to Niagara Falls. And I looked at the map and thought it through, and we ended up flying from Texas to Buffalo, and then through Chabad of Niagara, headed out to the Canadian border, Canada, did it on the Canadian side. And there I ran into my pet peeve, which is that I love the way that professional places do tourism. I love it. Like, you go to Niagara Falls, you're in Niagara Falls. At the end of the night, there's fireworks. Throughout, you go tunnels underneath. They take you on the boat underneath. Everything is made of the mist, and the Canadian side has a different name. And it's just, and you're going to come out having a great experience, having the more than one tchotchke that was the price point that you were willing to pay, and you really felt it. Now, where's my pet peeve? I think that Israel, we may not have waterfalls, but we have a natural resource, which is the stories of the Tanakh. And the stories of the Tanakh are the most famous, most resonant stories in the world. And as is well known, it's the most printed and bought book of all time. And yet, when you land at the airport, you basically are not sure where you landed. You could have landed anywhere. It's like I always say, when you land in Australia, you know exactly where you landed. You see the kangaroo and the didgeridoo and the wombat and the boomerang, you know where you landed. And you land in New York City, you see the Statue of Liberty, you know where you landed. When you land in New Jersey, you're like, I'm not exactly sure where I landed, because it doesn't have a strong culture, and it doesn't have a strong brand. Israel should, in theory, have a strong brand. We have a strong brand. And yet I find that we are under-branded, and we don't sell. For example, there's no sign that says, welcome to the Holy Land. It should be the easiest thing in the world. Land of the Bible, Holy Land, etc. Spiritual capital of the world, Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, spiritual capital of the world. And it's a pet peeve of mine, one that I'm working on also. I don't just wait for Mashiach to fix it. But let's talk a little bit about, our country, Israel, and how it does things. One of the frustrating things is that as your book is called Baderech, we're on the way, as you mentioned now a few times, and yet the frustration is, it's like you want to move a little faster. You want to brand it a little bit more biblically. You want to sell what we have, and yet we're being fought all the time, seemingly by our own people, seemingly by some kind of internal forces that are like relics of communism and secularism and now progressivism, all these things that seek to constantly put a cataract over the real identity of Israel. How do we deal with that emotionally, with that frustration? I think that a lot of us, and we're in front of a studio audience here, I think a lot of us feel tremendous frustrations inside, and we know what's right, and it's somehow unattainable or at arm's length, at a distance. And how do we move it forward? How do we move forward that thing? You say baderech, but like, how much baderech can you be? Sometimes you want to already get to the stop.
This is something that I think that our wives should probably talk about, because I lack patience. But we're an Am HaNetzach, we're an eternal nation, and we ought not to fear a long path. How do we speed this up? I don't know.
Yeah, but wait. But I want to challenge you on that. The long path is when the nations are against us or who knows what. But when it's our own, that's the frustration.
So there's a developmental reality here also, in that we have been around for 3,000 some odd years, 4,000 plus years, right? Going back to Avram and Sarah. But the new reality that the Jewish people that we are currently existing in and trying to find ourselves in is actually pretty young. It's 3/4 of a century, which by national standards and historical standards is really very young. We're almost like a teenager, right? We came from 2,000 years of exile, 2,000 years of not being ourselves, 2,000 years of having to kind of like a gecko, kind of blend in or try to figure out how to survive from physical threats, from whether it was in Eastern Europe, from pogroms, or it was in North African countries or Western countries, dealing with assimilation, dealing with enlightenment, dealing with pogroms, dealing with Chelnitsky, dealing with the Holocaust, dealing with this exile and that exile. Throughout all the generations, it kind of repeats itself, and that wears you down. It beats down a nation. And we've forgotten what it is to be Jews. We kind of became exiled Jews, Jews of a certain brand, without a Beit HaMikdash, without centralized leadership, without our culture and symbols, without self-reliance, without the ability to defend ourselves, without the ability to live with our Torah. I mean, the Torah was living as a handicapped Torah, a Torah with a physical disability almost, that couldn't use 1/3 of its mitzvot or not activated. In other words, if these mitzvot are like I call them channels of vitality, of life, of chiyus, of shefa, of flow, of imagine like blood flowing through a body with veins. So if there's 613 veins in a body that allow the blood to flow from the heart to the limbs, meaning from the center, from Torah, from godliness, from divinity to the rest of a Jew, so more than 1/3 of those were clogged. Those arteries were clogged without Beit HaMikdash, without Shemitah, without the Jubilee, without taking tithing, without that a Kohen just gets his aliyah first, or a Levi washes hands a couple times a year. We lost like a natural kind of expression of Yiddishkeit, and our Yiddishkeit became very exiled. It became, shtetl Yiddishkeit, or enlightened Yiddishkeit, or Borscht Belt Yiddishkeit, or whatever it may be. We've been bruised up, and we kind of lost what it is to be a natural Jew in their natural place. And that was a long time. We went through a lot very recently. We still have parents and grandparents who were in Auschwitz. And
my parents were behind the Iron Curtain, for example, only liberated and returned to religion, only left the Soviet Union in 1972 and only started coming back to Yiddishkeit.
I mean, it's so
close to home.
So right now, we're young. We're young. It's 2,000 years of trauma and 2,000 years of getting banged up and bruised up. It's really only 2 generations. We are the 3rd generation of Eretz Israel Jews. Many of us are immigrants, trying to figure out exactly our place. I can't advocate for my kids in school. I mean, I'm living in Israel for 20 years. My language is not sharp enough to advocate for my children in front of a committee in school.
Right.
I'm an immigrant.
Right.
And
our frat, we do it with the accent.
I try, but our kids have kind of merged into Israeli society in a different way, and I see that things are getting more refined, and they're more confident, and they're more a part of things, and they have more of a say and more of an influence on and an impact in what is coming next. So it is. I'm not trying to throw up my hands and say, oh, whatever, it'll be good then. But it's happening. I mean, every time in the first Commonwealth, second Commonwealth, the first Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash, the third generation is when things started to shift and unravel a little bit.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're up to right now. And it is frustrating, and it's exhausting, and it's really hard sometimes to deal with the internal tension and stress when you have people so desperately trying to hold on to some, I don't know, this Soros-funded progressive junta of this klipa holding on to this Supreme Court just choking us and not allowing just Yiddishkeit, simple Jewish life, prosecuting soldiers who killed bad guys on October 7th. Insane. Or trying to drive, so to speak, God language and Torah out of public spaces. I mean, you wonder, like, this is what we came back to Eretz Israel for? Yeah, this is what we came to Eretz Israel to fight for. They're still trying to recreate Paris and, New York and Vienna and this Commonwealth and this British parliamentary system that we've inherited in Eretz Israel, which is unnatural. It doesn't fit. And at the same time, many are trying to cut and paste the Yiddishkeit of the shtetl of Poland and Eastern Europe onto Eretz Israel, and also it's not working. It also doesn't work because it's the same reactionary, shallow Torah or Yiddishkeit, which is defensive, which is responsive or reactionary, as opposed to forward-thinking and vision and future and based on the actual book. It's when Torah has been relegated to being something theoretical. And now it's like we wake up and we're in Eretz Israel. We have to build a society and an economy and laws and an army and have borders and enemies and fight wars and live with Torah and all of that is very new. I mean, it's very natural, but like we're trying to unlearn all the fakery and all the superficiality and all the
and yet at the same time still carry some of the good things that we learned and assimilated, and I say that in a positive way, here in the diaspora. For example, driving culture. I'm not sure I want my kids to necessarily assimilate into Israeli driving culture. It would be nice if we brought some of the driving culture from upstate New York to Israel. Like, calm it down a little bit. There's certain things that, are I wish that the adinut, the more gentle way of the diaspora would actually penetrate.
Well, the B'ditcher
I'll give you. I just want to
teaching Jewish consciousness that our time in exile is to collect souls.
Right.
Collect souls that have converted and that have joined Klal Yisrael. And it doesn't just mean to build up our numbers, but it means to bring those positive spiritual and intellectual and influences in midot in human interaction, and that's we're all kind of figuring that out. What coming to, at least finding in our own community, is that, like, it's not going to just be that we're going to create one big melded, new Jew with a nusach that we're going to, daven nusach Sfard, but sing the Moroccan tunes and the Ashkenazi tunes, and then we're going to have chamin with herring, and then it'll be like everybody will just be some amalgam of like some really cool, new nusach achid, united thing where it's this melting pot that we've all kind of become together. But instead recognizing that Yachad Shiftei Yisrael, that we need the 12 tribes of Israel to restore a little bit of that consciousness, that we have different streams and different perspectives and different mentalities and different cultures and different ways and different levels or experiences of observance that came through the diaspora, which we have to honor and acknowledge and respect, and know that the only way this is going to work is if we say we can do this together. And building Mashiach and building the next era of Jewish history is going to have to be by honoring those and recognizing those, not being mechanech, like they say, lechanech them, to like change them and educate them and put them into, have everybody meld together into one thing that fits the way, the new Jew narrative. It's the opposite. It's recognizing and honoring that the diaspora, like the Rebbeinu Shalom, put us through this experience. We went through this experience in order to bring with it all that we've learned.
Right. I don't like, for example, sometimes people say, there's pet peeves. I don't like it when people are like, I hate America, and Israel's my only home. I'm like, don't come with a hate of America. Don't do that.
Slurpees.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm saying the lot to learn from 7-Eleven.
There's many Slurpees.
You ever go to a gas station in America? I stop at every gas. My pet peeve, the gas stations in Eretz Yisrael. I don't want to be like the Meraglim, but I stop over here at gas stations. We're in the car with me. I stop even if I don't need a drink, to admire the beverage selection.
That's right.
The snacks,
That's right.
the amount of types of iterations of flavors of snacks. Even if I'm not. There's something to it.
There are many drinks.
There's something to it. No, there's something to say. We can learn from this. The shefa, the expansiveness, the opportunity to hydrate. I don't know. There's something very, no due respect to the yellow on,
there's a lot to learn when it comes to, and I don't want to say this in a derogatory fashion, but the word materialism is not exactly. It comes off derogatory. It's not. There's a lot to learn from, and I think that one of the greatest sins that we have in the Jewish world is hubris and haughtiness. I think that is a sin that we are constantly victims of and fall for, and we really got to work on that. We got to be able to take those nitzotzot. Okay, let's go to just a tad of a controversial question.
The question? I don't even know.
Well, I guess the answer is baderech, right? That's your answer.
Yeah, the answer is stay cool, get a cold drink at a good gas station, and don't make a little malka balacha pressure.
Yellow is much better today than it was only 20, 30 years ago. Yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah.
It happens to be true. The beverage selection has increased, but also it's ridiculous to spend 17 shekel on a snack.
That's right.
Doesn't make sense.
That's right. It is ridiculous. All right, listen. I'm gonna. You work at Camp HASC, beautiful campus. One of your buildings where I'm staying is affectionately known as the White House. And I said that, look, this week Netanyahu stayed at the White House. And now I'm staying at the White House, okay?
I hope that the Israeli press will be more kind to you and be more favorable.
Actually, just so you know, the reports are coming out. He did not sleep at the White House. He slept at the Watergate. And that hotel was bugged. And I don't mean
physically.
With listening devices, but actually the pro-Hamas protesters put bugs, rats, stuff like that, and pulled the fire alarms in order to try to stop the arrest. But in any case, Prime Minister Netanyahu came to town.
I hope that won't happen in the White House here.
No, yeah. And if it is, it's par for the course.
Upstate New York,
exactly. So Prime Minister Netanyahu was in town. He gave a speech. That speech electrified the congressmen and senators there, electrified them. Yeah, and he just has a way of talking that puts Israel on the international stage. He just is on that level of a person and of a communicator. He is a great communicator. He's a very fine communicator in Hebrew, but he's a dazzling one in English. And it's just an awesome ability, and all of us who live in both of those worlds are awed by his ability to be such a switch hitter. And yet at the same time, Prime Minister Netanyahu and his ilk, his branja, as we say in Israel, his group, is one that does not know how to destroy a Hamas. It has funded them. It has given them their leadership by releasing them from jails. And is trying, on the one hand, to fight him, on the other hand, to keep talking about trying to make some kind of deal with him. And this is all just an example of the situation that Israel has found itself, surrounded by Iranian proxies in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen, really in Iraq, maybe on the way to Jordan as well, Iran working on the bomb, and with Israeli Arabs tending towards Palestinianism, i.e. jihadism, and so-called Palestinians all the way towards Hamasism, and our bus drivers in Israel being folks that hate us. My wife, God bless her, has been working very hard to stop so-called Palestinians, PA Arabs, from working in our town, almost to no avail. And they are people who we know predominantly support Hamas. We live in a country where we have haters in our land. We see them daily, and they give us looks day in, day out, how much they hate us. I mean, really. So I'm asking, my question is, and you can take it any way you want, because the question is about leadership. On the one hand, dazzling. On the other hand, get real.
deeply disappointed. Meaning, Bibi, he's great. Bibi spoke great. Senator Netanyahu is great. I vote for him in a second. He's the best. I was deeply disappointed in a couple of things that Netanyahu said. Not surprised. Not surprised. Then again, I aspire to be. We aspire to be people who live with the question of not like what do I want or what does the government of the world want, what does the international, court want, or what does Biden want or Trump want, but what's on Hashem? What does God want from me? And for that we have direction, we have historical consciousness, we have a Torah, we have a Tanakh, we have mitzvot, we have commandments. And I try aspirationally to live through the prism of those commandments and those Torah values. I don't know that Netanyahu, as a leader, sees that as a metric that fuels and that drives his policy or consciousness. There is nothing to be proud about, in my estimation, for sending half a ton or half a billion tons or million tons of aid to terrorists in the middle of war. It's a busha, it's an embarrassment, it's weakness. I think that's why there are still hostages in Gaza, because we haven't really fought a war. And our kids are there, our families are there, burying soldiers. We're families are being torn apart, and we're fighting a war with a hand tied behind our back, and begging the nations of the world to pat us on the back and give us a star on our Pishy chart because we're giving food to terrorists. It's not the way you fight a war. It's not the way wars are fought in Torah. It's not the way wars are fought historically. It's not the way wars are won historically. Netanyahu announces before the entire world, we're not going to resettle this land. We're going to give it over to some type of something, I don't know, more jihadis, more Arabs, like the 15% who don't want to rape and kill every Jew. I don't know. Or some United Nations, something or other, I don't know what. Well, he didn't say exactly. But no, we're in the Middle East. We're not in a textbook in West Point. And even in West Point, the military strategy is saying that's not how you fight wars. This is why war lasts 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, and schleps on and without any real direction in the end. Wars are brutal. Wars are costly. Wars are terrible. And in Torah, wars are bloody and decisive. And Jewish consciousness and biblical consciousness doesn't glorify war, but it doesn't apologize for war either. We defend ourselves, and we even engage in conquest. This is not about colonialization. This is not about expansion for the sake of wealth or for power. But he's speaking a wonderful English and espousing wonderful Christian technocratic Western values, not Jewish values. This is not the way Jews fight.
And not Middle East values.
No, it's not the way the Middle East.
Right,
You're in a neighborhood that doesn't respect somebody who gets up and talks about we want peace. Mm-hmm. No, we want to live here. We want you not to live here. That's right. We want to live. Mm-hmm. And if you have a problem with that, then we want you to die. That's the way it works. I mean, that's the way it's always worked. That's the way America fights wars. That's the way region works. Any war that has ever been won in the history of the world has been fought by good guys and bad guys fighting it out until one person surrenders, the other guy takes his land. That's the way it goes. That's the way it works. And that's what you die for.
And certainly people who are vowed to hate, they hate you, they want to destroy you. You cannot have them remain on your borders.
We're going to do this again.
Right.
And we're going to do this again and again and again. And no matter what you do, no matter how many of us are going to kill, we're still going to come and do everything we can to rape and kill and do everything we can to destroy your way of life. America too. First they come for the Saturday people, then they come for the Sunday people. It's the same war for them. Jihad is jihad. And we don't respect them. And I think it's disrespectful, and I believe that it's weakness and it's a disgrace to the honor of God in the world and to the honor of the Jewish nation in the world. And I think it's also embarrassing. It's really not. I don't know. It's not very progressive. I trust the Arabs. I respect Arabs. I respect Muslims. I think they should be treated and taken by their word, and respected for their religious beliefs. Not like this whitewashing that goes on in the West of like, no, we're going to do peace. We're going to have an agreement. We're going to give them some land. And they say, well, yeah, we're going to take that land. Then we're going to kill you. We're going to rape your women. We're going to kill your children. We're going to try to take your old people into our tunnels. And then we're going to say, oh, we want to make peace. We want to make peace. And then we're going to do it again. So I trust them. I believe them. I think that it's disrespectful and inappropriate. I think it's an embarrassment for leadership to not have a sense of that. Shlomo Carlebach once said, that the United Nations, everybody yells and screams about the Jewish nation and condemns us all the time. If one time a Yid would come to the United Nations and open up a Torah, a Tanakh, and read the first pasuk in Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim. God, friends, this is the Bible. Comes with a beard, kippah, who looks like a Jew, who's not embarrassed of being a Jew, but comes and will put down a Tanakh on the table and read the first pasuk in Torah. Say, God created the world, and read the first Rashi, Koch Masav V'Yigal Amo. That the world begins, the Torah begins with God creating heaven and earth, because Hashem is saying, this is my world. I have a plan for this world. I have a place for everyone, and I have a plan, and there's a method to this craziness. And part of that is that the Jewish nation belongs in the land of Israel, and I've promised this to the nation of Israel. And the way for the world to reach its potential is by Am Yisrael being naturally in its land, and then for the good of the nations of the world, as an outward-facing, loving state, a state that can be and ought to be and will be one day a real light unto the nations by being who we really are, living our values, not pretending to be something that we're not trying to be like some shtetl that was, or some Kremlin that was, or some parliament that was, but to be Jews, am chafshi ba'artzeinu, free. It's a freedom to be free, to live our faith and to express our values, to say this is what we are, without fear, without embarrassment. Netanyahu did a great job up there.
Wait, what's the end of the story? Shlomo Carlebach.
And he said, imagine if a Yid got up there and slammed on the table and said, this is our Torah,
right.
God gave us the Torah, and we're here to stay, people.
Right.
And get with the program.
So the nations would accept it.
Nations would say, okay, Beseder, but we don't. We apologize, and we say, we'll share it, we'll do it your way, you can have here, you can do this. And we're just embarrassed. Because we're damaged, we're abused. We've come out of 2,000 years. And like Moshe, who stood by Mount Sinai after the golden calf, defending the nation of Israel, saying, God, they just came out of Egypt. They just suffered. They don't yet know how to be self-reliant or to be independent. They can't yet be held responsible. We are rebellious teenagers. We're young. This is 3/4 of a century.
At some point, though, you can't use that excuse. Like at some point, you got to
you
get out
tell
of
your kid, you pick yourself up out of bed, get a job, get it together.
You can't live in your parents' basement forever. And be
so
like,
that's
I'm
what we're
40.
up to.
Come on, I'm still young.
But that's what we're up to.
Yeah.
And we started getting into that a little bit before October 7th with the judicial reform. And then we kind of backed off because we got nervous because you get to the goal line stand. And I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right way. Maybe we could have been done a little bit more thoughtfully, a little bit more sensitively. Maybe we rushed it. But anybody who understands the trajectory and the arch of Jewish history and the way things are going knows that we're coming to like a real point of change, a real point of clarity. And this narrow bridge that seems to be very, very narrow, that Rabbi Nachman says the whole world is like this narrow bridge. The main thing is not to be afraid. To make ourselves afraid, not to freak ourselves out, not to panic, but to stay with our truth, to stay with our values, to stay with our clarity, keep our eye, look forward, walk the tightrope by looking forward, keep our eye on the goal. We have a plan for this. We have a Torah, we have direction. Bibi does not. He doesn't. He speaks great, and he's done a great job. And I don't think there's anybody else right now that I can see in the chamula of politicians there, and not, I don't know.
There might be.
I don't know. I don't know. But this is what it is right now. This is what Hashkacha is right now. I don't know. And I'm not selling it off by saying, we'll have Mashiach, we'll have a king who'll do it. I don't know. That's really not my area of expertise. But I do know that if we're going to really have this be a sustainable, lasting, safe place for the Jewish people to live, where we can really be ourselves and really be free and really be a light into the nations, it has to be somebody who puts the Tanakh down on the Stender in the United Nations and looks the nations of the world in the eye and say, Chaver, we're doing this because this is God's land and we're God's people, and we're doing this because this is who we really are.
Okay, final question, really. You know why I go to sleep at night relatively calmly? Because whatever the vicissitudes of Israel and anti-Semitism and challenges of the Jews around the world, whatever the vicissitudes are, the problems that we fight with our Supreme Court, which we mentioned, I am involved in building, physical building. And that building is one of my big projects as a Kever Ruth Yishai, the tomb of Ruth and Yishai in Hebron. And every day we're beautifying it, and every day we're making it better, and we're laying down floor, and we're making physical stuff better for Am Yisrael. And there is nothing like that feeling that I know of.
I've seen that progression
Yeah.
over the past 15 years.
Yeah.
Remember when we were putting in the lighting and installation?
But now it's gone on steroids.
I know. I was there a month ago.
And it's been such a pleasure. Why do I mention this? Because I know that you two are now involved in building here at HASC. I had the merit to spend, just before this recording, to spend time with you as you enter the medical building, the new medical building. And it looks great. It still doesn't have the wallpaper, and it's not all totally set up, but the staff is already there. The staff is excited. There's rooms. Now, HASC is a camp that has people with medical needs. A lot. Medicines and emergency things, all kinds of stuff here, which I'm not even aware of yet totally, but I understand that there's needs here. And you've been involved for the past many years to put up this new building. So let's just talk about building for a second. Let's talk about the feeling of what it is to build. We're talking about leadership. Leadership is a building thing. Tell me a little bit about the effort to build this new building and what it taught you in life, and what we can learn from this amazing process of growing Hashem's world and building Hashem's world.
So the purpose of creation is to build. The purpose of creation is to develop, is to cultivate. La'avda u'l'shamra. To build, to cultivate, to move forward, and to protect that. Now, in Camp HASC, it's a camp that's been a program that's been around for more than half a century that provides services for individuals with developmental disabilities, specialized needs, physical handicap, like you mentioned, to provide them and their families with support and a summer of respite, provide for their medical needs, their spiritual needs, their intellectual needs. We have a school here with a couple dozen classrooms with special ed teachers. We have a therapy center that provides them with occupational therapy and speech therapy, and we're addressing the entirety of the individual and doing everything possible to help, to strengthen, to build that individual, to build those families. Because building is not just a physical experience. It's not
What's
just
it called, though?
place. It's called the Hebrew Academy for Special Children, HASC, Camp HASC.
No, the new building.
The Beit Refuah. It's not a Beit Cholim. It's not a hospital. Certainly not an infirmary.
Right.
But we're
The
calling
Lubavitcher Rebbe did not like those names.
because that kind of labels it as a place of illness or infrailty or what's wrong. A Beit Refuah means it's a place of health, of healing, and aspirationally, that's what you intended to be. That a person should come to a place and get better,
refuah.
and get better, be healed. Now, all of that is a metaphor for the nation, for the individual, because building takes place not just physically. You need to have electric. You need to have, the foundations. I mean, before anything was built here, it took a tremendous amount of resources and time just to plan it out. To sit down and have architects and engineers and the Environmental Protection Agency, and to get rid of the old buildings, to tear them down, and to build and to rip up what was underneath, and then reroute septic and drainage and electric and upgrade the power. That cost a tremendous amount of money and took months and months and months longer than we thought it would be. And then there was plans for this building to be built somewhere else, and then those plans were redrawn and redrawn again. And then the computerized and the 3D, and then it was designed, and then what's in that building. It was a tremendous amount.
Even just as you say these words, I get so excited about it. There's
Building
nothing,
is exciting.
Building
is a knock.
Somebody said to me, a friend of mine who's a builder said to me, it's the largest handmade thing you're ever going to buy. It's handmade. Yeah. It's an amazing process. It's an amazing sof maseh machshavat chila. You have to think it through and lay the wires.
Every single step.
And the sewage. And
the amount of people that were involved in this, the amount of creativity and human capital and brain power and creative power and money that went into this. It was an extraordinary, and it is an extraordinary project and process. And it's a metaphor also for the binyan of a person or of a state or of a nation or of a land, is that there's a physical side to it that requires a tremendous investment, but there's also, remember what the purpose is, remember what the goal of it is. I mean, before we even began, it was, what do we need? What has to happen there? What's the goal of this place? Right. What do we intend What do we intend for this place to look like and to be at the end? What services do we want to provide? What feeling do you want people to have there? We want that a parent with a child with special needs should see it and feel confident that their child is going to be taken care of responsibly, professionally, with love, which is what happens here. We have incredible professionals.
Right.
Because there's an incredible soul power here. And now the buildings are hopefully, like the guf is going to match the neshama. The external is going to match the internal movement over here. We can also get lost in that physical building also and get very caught up in it, in the kavod of it, and the presentation of it, and the experience of like having something and building something. Can almost become, it's not an end in and of itself, which it's not.
Right.
And that's why it's important to always remember that there's a spiritual side of building, and there's a physical side of building, and it's true with people, and it's true with the state, and it's true with the land. But it is very satisfying. I'll also mention to you very honestly, there's a very ambivalent feeling also. A tremendous amount of time, effort, capital, and resources that went into building something in upstate New York. And I don't see that there's a future for the Jewish people in upstate New York. There is a statement in the sages that say that a building where Jews daven and learn in, a Beit Knesset, Beit Medrash, that's built al Tanai on the condition that it's, with intentionality, then when Mashiach comes, it'll go to Eretz Israel. So when I spoke with my teacher, and I thought about this a lot, a Beit Refuah that's built with that Tanai, with that condition, for the purpose of honoring God in the world and serving the Jewish people, also will have that. And we even actually wrote down with a couple of the major donors in the beginning, we actually wrote a contract outside of Maras Machpelah, right there in the Stay Machpelah. We sat on a bench after we came out of the home of the Liebmans, Elia Liebman's home, and we went there to daven, and we sat down and wrote up a little star that the Tanai is that when Mashiach comes, we'll bring this to Beit Shemesh, where I live. It'll be a maternity center. I'm going to be the administrator. I won't have a job when Mashiach comes also, if everyone's bouncing out of New York. I don't think it's some magic pill that you're not going to have to work. So, I did take that liberty. But there is a feeling of like, well, on the other hand, there are Jews here, and Am Yisrael needs to take care of each other. We have to build strong communities and take care of Am Yisrael wherever they are, where we are, and create an environment of a place that's loving and positive and proud of its Yiddishkeit. And the staff here in Camp HASC are of the best and brightest in the Jewish community. Motivated, dedicated, hardworking, with a sense of real sacrifice, real purpose, real mission-driven. The head staff here are leaders in the community, are educators, are role models. The women and men are people who live Torah, embody Torah, the best of Yiddishkeit. Many live in Eretz Israel. Many are hoping to live in Eretz Israel. Everyone here is united by a sense of purpose and mission, with a I'd say an Eretz Israel consciousness, with a Am Yisrael consciousness, with as opposed to, like you said in the beginning, kind of focusing on their own little personal growth and Dalet Amot. No one here is stuck in that exile. Everyone here is living with a Geuladik, redeemed way of seeing a tzibur, a klal, the collective. So spending a summer up here in service, taking care of individuals with specialized needs, in the bunks, bathing and clothing and feeding, it's godly work, it's holy work, and it's work which also kind of prepares us or engages us in the work of building the nation of Israel. And building an individual and building the nation is the next step toward building the state. And any ambivalent feeling of or hesitation of pumping resources and money here is tempered by the fact that we work to try to get from the government of the United States. And they're not giving the money to give us the bombs that we need to really wipe out the bad guys that are above and underground. So at least let them give money over here from the assembly and the state and the federation, and they do, because they see the work here is how significant it is, how meaningful it is, building up the fabric of this society. That's what a nonprofit is all about. That's what a non-governmental organization is. That's why it's tax exempt, is that we're doing the job that a government can't do, which is to provide for the soul of the community, so to speak, by providing for those who are most vulnerable. So we are getting government funding for a lot of the projects here, and the Jewish community is contributing toward this incubation of Jewish leadership and the training of Jewish leadership that takes place in Camp HASC, all toward ultimately the goal of Binyan Ha'am ve'ha'aretz, because I believe that that's where ultimately everyone who is a part of this is going to end up. It's inevitable. It's just inevitable. And Be'ezrat Hashem, it's going to happen very, very soon.
Amen. Olam Chesed Yivaneh, the world is built through kindness, and this is certainly building up the world. And you're also building up the next generation of Jewish leaders. and Jewish nation that cares for itself and for others, for the chesed. And I know that I've already spoken in the just a few hours that I've been here. I find that both the campers and the staff here have a tremendous joy. They look forward to it throughout the whole year. I've already heard that twice from a few people that I've spoken to.
The special sauce is what you said before: responsibility, agency,
right?
Achrayut.
Absolutely.
You feel kavod. It's kavod habriot here. People are treated with dignity. They're seen as a soul, as someone who matters, as a person who matters in the world, regardless of their level of ability or disability or whatever it may be. And when that respect is at the forefront of and the driving force of everything you're doing, and you take responsibility over another person, then the dignity of self leads you to like an expanded consciousness to imagine the best we possibly could be as individuals and as a collective. And that ultimately is, again, binyan ha'am v'ha'aretz, which is what's happening here. And Bezrat Hashem, you're going to see it very, very soon come to its full manifestation in the land as well.
Rabbi Judah Mischel is a renowned educator and author, and also the executive director of Camp HASC. Thank you so much for letting me be with you here. Looking forward to a great weekend spending here.
We're so excited.
Amazing place. Toda rabba.
Thank you.
Toda rabba to everybody. Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed my chat with Rabbi Judah Mischel, one of the leading thinkers of our time and a very special person who's doing great work. A great privilege to be with him and a great privilege to be with you. Please write me, yishai.fleisher.com, and subscribe to our channel here at Yishai Fleisher TV. And I wish you blessings from the land of Israel and shalom.